Welcome to Uncommon Sense, where we do our best to make it common again. I'm your host, Adrian Ahlquist, and today I'm joined by Richard Vigilante. How are you, Richard?
I'm great, Adrian. I'm very happy to be here.
Great.
And life is good.
Nice. Well, Richard is also on the board of our Society of GK Chesterton, and you're also on the board of this Chesterton Academy that we're in right now, the Twin Cities Chesterton Academy. Is that right?
Yeah, that is right. I've been on the board forever.
Right. There's more to the story, right? So my dad with the co-founder Tom Bankston, they started the original Chesterton Academy, but behind the scenes we had Richard. He was there with them, and then right when we started, I don't know how many people know this, but there was a stock market crash because this was in 2008. Do you want to explain anything?
Yeah, well,
that?
I at the time I worked for a hedge fund. I did communications for a hedge fund called White Box Advisors, and
wait, can I?
Yeah.
Isn't that one of the companies that predicted the crash? I think they were listed.
Yes. No, we're in The Big Short, not
Yeah.
the movie, but we're in the book.
Okay.
Yeah, we're in the book, and we predicted and bet on the real estate crash and made a lot of money. We weren't expecting the following fall, we weren't expecting the stock market crash. But so when I asked the founder of White Box Advisors, Andy Redleaf, who, by the way, for many years was also the leading supporter of this school.
Yes.
And
thank you to Andy Redleaf.
Yes, right. So I asked, is it okay if I teach a class at Chesterton? So I was Chesterton Academy's first ever philosophy teacher. Then the market crashed, and it's my job to communicate with our clients, and the clients all of a sudden needed a lot of communicating.
What do you know? So you were the philosophy teacher for about a week, right?
For 3 weeks.
For 3 weeks.
No,
okay,
yeah,
okay.
Don't undercut me there. 3 weeks, and we never. I blame your brother for this. Actually, we never really got past the pre-Socratics, right?
Okay.
And it's just because they insisted that I do the pre-Socratics, which so Thales thought that everything was made of water, right? I mean, okay, is this really worth studying?
For the record, my brother is the one who took over the philosophy teaching after Richard.
Right. And but I did come up with a great mnemonic for Thales, right? Thales, Thels, Thethels, by the Thethor. That way you can never forget that
true.
Thales thought everything was made from water.
I don't think I'll forget that now. Yeah.
No, you won't be able to. You won't be able to.
That's great.
Right? Like there's another guy who thought everything was fire, another guy everything earth. But I don't remember those guys.
Oh, okay.
Because we didn't come up with a mnemonic for those guys.
That's true. Okay, nice.
Right.
I remember spending a fair amount of time on the pre-Socratics, and I still remember some of them, but yeah.
Yeah, right. And all due respect to your brother Julian, did the pre-Socratics change your life?
No, it was more Socratics than pre-Socratics.
Right.
But yeah, that's fine.
Anyway.
Yeah. So the reason I brought in Richard was to talk about this organization that you also started called Teach for Christ. And I will have this definitely in the description, and you should look at it. It's a sponsored organization of the Society of GK Chesterton, and we're going to talk about this amazing thing that Richard started. So do you want to give a brief summary of what Teach for Christ is?
Look, the Catholic school system was started, supported, made possible by the sacrificial labor of tens of thousands of nuns, religious brothers, and priests, right? That's why we have a Catholic school system. We're trying to rebuild the Catholic school system, revive the Catholic school system by using the sacrificial labor of young lay Catholics, recent college graduates who come to us, are trained. They're trained academically, they're trained on how to serve in community, they're trained spiritually, and then we send them on mission into Catholic schools for a year or more. And what they do in those schools, most of them don't have teaching degrees, so you don't have to be a qualified teacher to be in Teach for Christ. Most of them serve as academic coaches, tutors, teaching assistants. So what we do is make it possible for a Catholic school to admit more students, have larger quote-unquote class size, because basically it comes down to this. Two teachers, can teach 25 students more effectively than one teacher can teach 15, right? And the great crisis, that the reason that Catholic education is so expensive is that we have really small classes, right? The average class size in a Catholic school is 16. Public school is 24, right? Mm-hmm. So we need to fill up our classrooms, but we can do that much better if there's a second person in the class to help with classroom disorder, to help with classroom management, to tutor the slow kids, to challenge the fast kids. And that's what we do. We have four missionaries right here this year in this Chesterton Academy.
Yeah, I was going to mention that, and it seems to be working very well to have.
Yeah, four might be kind of a magic number. We had two for the first 3 years. We always sent two to Chesterton Academy. Four, they really work as a team, and they address every part of the Chesterton formation, not just intellectual or academic, but also spiritual and the formation of character. Mm-hmm. So they're very active in retreats. They're very active in our house system. But what they really do here, we've created a role, along with Dave Beskar, the headmaster here, called academic coach. And we focus our missionaries on freshman year. Because it's a big transition. Now, as a parent, I was very unhappy with how little help my own daughter got transitioning from 8th grade to high school. Right. I felt that she was lost, and all of a sudden she had to take accurate notes. Sure. Right. If she wrote down the wrong date and memorized it, that would be, you'd get a bad mark. Yeah. Right. And so, they don't give out study sheets anymore. You have to do a lot yourself. Right. So, each incoming freshman at this Chesterton Academy is assigned one of our four missionaries to be his or her academic coach. And they teach them to make that transition. They tutor them if they're falling behind in a class. They help. They're an ear and a friendly voice in making the social transition. Mm-hmm. So.
Wow. Yeah, and I understand that you've been generating quite a demand now with this Teach for Christ, right? We have
14 missionaries in the program. Mm-hmm. We've had 40 go through the program. We have demand for hundreds, mm-hmm. right? There are dozens of schools that want teams, and almost every Chesterton Academy wants a team. And we're straining to do that. Recruitment is a challenge. Can I make a pitch?
Yeah, absolutely. This is what we're here for, because again, you're a sponsored organization of the society, so this is an official society podcast. So yeah.
One thing I'm really proud of is that at this Chesterton Academy in the Twin Cities, every single missionary we've sent to this school has been offered a faculty position, right? That's how good they've been, right? And it's it's very hard to hire teachers because you don't know what you're getting necessarily. But this is a great way to work for a year or two with a headmaster at a Chesterton Academy, do in effect an apprenticeship, mm-hmm. right? So if teaching in a classical Catholic high school is your dream, I just have to say, and I'm absolutely confident of this, probably doing a missionary year or two with Teach for Christ is your best way of getting into a Chesterton high school to teach.
That's really good. That's really good to know. Yeah.
Yeah.
You gave me some other amazing piece of information when you told me about it back in it was a conference
Right.
2 years ago, and you told me some other things that were really great to hear from.
Do you remember?
Yeah. I guess I shouldn't put you on the spot like that. You talked about real poverty. That was.
That's so. We do a lot of work in the mission schools. The mission schools are schools that are basically, they're all Section 1 school. I mean, they're not. Majority of the kids get free or subsidized lunch.
Yeah.
And I'm sure everyone who's listening remembers that the violence this spring started here in Minneapolis. Mm-hmm. And one of the schools we work in, Ascension School, was at the very epicenter of the violence. That whole street is boarded up now, Broadway near Ascension. We work with very challenged students. They're not. So we all know about learning disabilities. Learning disability, that's a federal diagnosis referring to a permanent neurological defect, right? Mm-hmm. But there are a tremendous number of, it's like Dick Tracy. My phone's, my wrist is ringing. But there are a tremendous number of kids who will never get a federal diagnosis, but have lived such traumatized young lives that they really are special needs kids. We're talking about children who, are sleeping in one place on Tuesday and another place on Wednesday. We're talking about kids who can't identify the adult in their lives who's really their mother or father. We're talking about, can I tell a story?
Yes, yeah.
So, the first day I went to Ascension School to meet with the principal, and we explained to him the idea for Teach for Christ. This was the year before we started. Mm-hmm. And I told him, we're not gonna do the Teach for America thing. We're not gonna pretend that we can make proficient teachers in 7 weeks. We're sending you missionaries to help in any way they can. And he almost leapt across the desk and said, "Give me 12 of them," right? Which of course we couldn't do. I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, because of something that happened today, but it can happen any day." That very day, a young man, and Benito, who's the principal, calls all his students scholars, a young scholar, 2nd grade, I think. On most days, he was walked to school by his adult cousin. This particular day, on the way to school, his cousin was arrested. There was some outstanding warrant. He was also an illegal. Boys walking to school, cops descend on them, arrest the cousin.
Wow.
Now, the cops are great in Minneapolis, no matter what anybody says, and they had the good sense to bring the boy to school. But the boy arrived at school completely traumatized, just beside himself, right? This cousin, one of the main adult figures in his life, was just dragged off to jail.
And no one knew about it.
Right? And no one knew about it. So at that point, he's in a class with 20 other kids. At that point, the teacher is faced with an impossible choice. Do I teach the one? Do I take care of the one who desperately needs some help? Or do I teach the 19? It's like Jesus with the lambs, the one or the 99, right?
Yeah.
And And what Benito told me is that your missionaries would solve that problem, right? Either the missionary can teach the class, and the teacher can comfort the student, or the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we sent a team to Ascension and to several other mission schools, and it's tough, but beautiful duty. There are so many damaged children in those schools, and they damaged so that they can't really regulate themselves. They lack executive function, as it's called. They overreact to things, right? I mean, what's normal to us seems angry to that child. You may say very gently, sit down.
Mm-hmm.
When a child who's been screamed at his whole life, who spends his ordinary days in fear, that just triggers a tremendous emotional response. I'm sorry. I tend to give long answers to short questions.
Okay. Keep going.
But so this is real poverty,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's not the poverty of I don't have enough money or I can't take a vacation. It's poverty of I have no sense of hope. I have no sense of affection. I have no stable relationships in my life. Now, here's the key. Here's the thing. In the mission schools, that kind of poverty is obvious, but it's present in all of our schools. And it should never, ever, ever be part of a Catholic school. There shouldn't be loneliness in a Catholic school. There shouldn't be a sense of abandonment in a Catholic school. There shouldn't be a lack of hope in a Catholic school. And yet, we know that there is. We may live in the loneliest time in history, right? Oh, that's why what we do, developing face-to-face relationships with students, tutoring, coaching, is so important because it's not just instruction, right? School is formation. I remember actually right here at this school, the school had existed for 5 or 6 years. We were 5, 6, 7 years in.
Mm-hmm.
And we realized something. You know, your dad and Tom Bankston and I, we had thought that we were in the education business, right? Mm-hmm. We thought that this was about classical education, right, in a Catholic tradition. We found out that we were wrong. We're in the formation business, right? It was actually a board meeting, and we rewrote our mission statement because our job is the formation of the intellect, the character, and the soul of our students. And that's what Teach for Christ does. We do help with education. In the mission schools, we can show a 20% increase in academic achievement in the course of the year, right? So instead of
ask you about the statistics, yeah.
Instead of having 10 months of education, it's like having 12 months of education because there are kids who are so lost that, you know, if you really fall behind in a class, at some point you just stop listening. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't catch up by yourself. You need somebody to do it step by step for you. And that's what we do.
Mm-hmm. I thought that was a really inspirational pitch, though, about encountering true poverty and helping with that and really touching the lives of these kids. But I wanted to ask, so from the perspective of a potential teacher for Christ, a potential recruit, what if they say, you know, oh, that's great, I completely believe in your mission, but what, you know, I'm kind of poor right now too, it's at the beginning of my career, you know, what if they show some hesitation? Do you have some other
yes, well,
yeah.
and it's usually not the missionaries. The parents are the biggest problem.
Okay.
Right? The parents do not want kids to go on mission, which is a terrible thing, and we need to talk about that. But parents want kids to pay off their college loans.
Okay, yeah, let's address the parents maybe, yeah.
All I can say is that a mission year is a great way to start a career, one of the best ways to start a career. Take our missionaries. What do they learn? First of all, they will work much harder than they ever have in their entire lives, right? It's these schools are all underfunded, including the Chesterton schools. There's always time to do more. Mm-hmm. There's always a need to do more. So first of all, you'll be able to look any employer in the eye and say, I already work harder than you'll ever ask me to work. I've already done it. It's very important. It's not like a job, like you just sit at your desk and do things.
No. Yeah.
It's leadership is required. Leadership and the ability, by the way, to interact with your professional peers. Because remember, they're helping a teacher. Well, they need to be able to talk to that teacher like an adult. Mm-hmm. They need to be able to figure out what needs to be done. They need to be able to talk to the principal, to the head of department. They may be helping multiple teachers, right? They need to navigate their way in a professional environment while exercising a level of responsibility far above what most first-year college graduates exercise. Student loans can be deferred. Right, essentially all of our students defer student loans. One thing that is a little frightening, but I think is one of the best things about the experience, mm-hmm. is that we ask missionaries to raise some of their own support. Right, it costs us between recruitment and training and transportation and food and housing. It costs us a fair bit to keep a missionary in the field. We ask missionaries to raise some of that funding. It was $5,000 this year. Mm-hmm. From friends and family and supporters. And you know something? That's a transformative experience.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, if you want to have a good professional career, learn how to ask people for money.
Yeah, I've learned that is a skill in and of itself.
Yeah, it is a skill in and of itself. And guess what? It turns out to be incredibly easy. Right? A lot of the missionaries are apprehensive about it at first. But the adults in your life really want to help. And they're really glad that you're doing this.
Right.
And they're very proud of you.
Mm-hmm.
And they write checks, right?
But yeah, I think the worry sometimes is that if you're feeling like you're taking advantage of people. But the thing is, if you believe in the mission that you're doing and you believe that it does require money and help, then it's not. It's only if you don't believe in it that maybe it feels like you're taking advantage.
That's 100% right. I mean, you're helping the people who support you get into heaven, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Almsgiving.
Mission is a collective enterprise. Those who can go. Those who can give. Right? We all have to do this. St. Paul repeatedly, in his epistles, it's a little subtle, but he's repeatedly thanking people who have financially made his mission possible,
mm-hmm.
right? Mm-hmm. And there's the thing about, Paul was a tent maker. Yeah, he was a tent maker, but the disciples supported his mission. If you read through the epistles very closely, you can see little parts where he's in effect thanking them, right? Yeah. His phrase is, "And you sent me on my way." Mm-hmm. Right? Sent me on my way is code for you gave me the support I needed to get to the next mission trip. Not everybody who comes to teach for Christ wants to be a teacher, right? You don't need to want to be a teacher. It's a mission year. You will do good. You will carry the cross. You will grow up. You will impress employers. But if you do want to teach, especially if you want to teach in a Catholic school, it's a great apprenticeship. Mm-hmm. Just virtually all of those of our missionaries who decided they want to teach. Some came in discerning whether they wanted to or not. And some just, ran, said, no, I totally don't want to do this.
Yeah.
And some came in thinking that they do something else,
Right.
but they discovered they love teaching. But of those who decided they want to teach, virtually all our missionaries have teaching jobs.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah. Another thing is your offices, the Teach for Christ hub is right across the hallway from ours. And
Yes.
So I see you guys all the time and see them working away. Are you happy with your staff and all the things that are happening behind the scenes?
Yeah, we have a very small but great staff. So our executive director, the person who actually runs Teach for Christ, is Teresa Kruger. And surprise, surprise, we stole Teresa Kruger from this Chesterton Academy. She was Dean of Women, and from the very beginning, she ran our summer training, right? Teresa is Teresa's a perfect mix for what we do. We're missionary educators. Teresa's always been a missionary. She was an early net missionary.
Okay, yeah.
Right? And she's held very serious positions in education for 20 years. She was a headmaster in the Great Heart System in Arizona. She taught at Trinity School.
By the way, I'm glad you brought up net, because if people are looking at net as a potential to go into, then maybe you want to consider Teach for Christ, and especially right now when during the pandemic we still have schools and we still need to be open to a certain extent.
That's a great point.
We need the Teach for Christ. Maybe net can take a hold on that, and we do need net as well. But maybe Teach for Christ is, if you're on the fence at all, maybe look at Teach for Christ, right?
It's Pearl Harbor, right? I mean, we need. Look, the church is not going to be saved by our ordained or religious brothers and sisters. This is the age of the laity. And if we value what we've been given and then don't come forward to serve ourselves in a serious way. Look, I started Teach for Christ because of two experiences in my life. The first one was that when I went to Catholic school, and Catholic school utterly formed my life. It formed my entire moral outlook. It made me realize that I was part of a moral adventure, right? That I could help the good guys or help the bad guys, right?
Yeah.
But when I went to school, my older brother tuition was $8 a month. My tuition was $5 a month. And my two siblings could go for free, because who could ask a Catholic family for more than $13 a month in 1965, right? That's one experience, because I want that universal Catholic education available to every Catholic student and all the non-Catholic students too. The other thing is that, like most sons of reasonably devout families, at some point I gave serious consideration to the priesthood, right? That's very common. I think probably 90% of young Catholic men of my generation at least thought about it.
Right.
When it became clear that that wasn't going to happen, I always thought years later that if somebody had tapped me on the shoulder at that moment and said, all right, we get it. God bless. You're gonna get married. You're going to make a bunch of money. Those are wonderful things. But right now, while you're free, could you give Jesus a year? Could you give him 2 years? You say the Catholic school formed your life. Can you give back? Can you carry the cross a little bit? You're not going to do it for life. We settled that. Okay. But are you going to put your money where your mouth is and serve the Jesus you love and build up his church? You're never going to be this free again. Mm-hmm. And you will never, never regret it. In those days, the lay movements didn't exist. I'm very old. So there was nobody to tap me on the shoulder. But now we have all these lay movements. And we need to build a mission culture in this church. And that is, the gates of hell will not prevail. But whether the Catholic Church in the United States thrives depends on whether young people answer the call to mission.
Mm-hmm. That's really great. Yeah, I agree. You're a good salesperson.
And by the way, if any priests or religious or bishops are listening, although lay people can carry a tremendous burden, building a culture of mission is actually not something lay people can do alone. Mm-hmm. I've been a Catholic for 64 years. I don't remember the first two very well. But I've been a Catholic for a long time. I've never heard a priest from the pulpit advocate for mission. Tell parents, if you want your kid to keep the faith, send them on mission. Tell young adults, if you want preparation for life and you want to serve Jesus, think about mission. The church needs to start talking about mission. We need, and I've actually talked to your father about this. Mm-hmm. The schools need to do curricula about mission, right? From the early grades on, they should be having missionaries into the class and explain what they do. And we need to build a culture where it becomes routine for young Catholic adults to do mission.
We're starting to bring in people like that.
Yes.
To talk.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
Well,
where can they find you?
Teachforchrist.org.
Teachforchrist.org.
So it's very, very easy. It's just www.teachforchrist.org. And we have an application right on the website. The application it's brief. It's not really a commitment. It gives us a chance to get to know you. And of course, we need support too. But you really should graduate college. You're between 21 and 28 years old. It's a great experience. We live in prayerful communities. We have men's houses and women's houses. Every missionary says the community is the best part of the experience.
That's great. Yeah, that's great.
You develop friends for life. And it really is, I can't think of a better way to start a teaching career if that's what you're called to, because it's very hard otherwise to give opportunities to demonstrate your ability to a principal. Mm-hmm. In Teach for Christ, you spend all year demonstrating your abilities to a principal, and either they'll have an opening at that school or that principal will speak up for you. In fact, we're starting a certificate program. Mm-hmm. We're starting a program under which missionaries who commit for 2 years and go through certain special training will be named as teaching fellows of the Chesterton Schools Network.
Oh, wow. Cool. That's great. That's good. Well, that's amazing. So you heard it, teachforchrist.org, and I'll have the link in the description if you're watching this on YouTube. And please, if you are young and maybe out of college, please consider looking at Teach for Christ and giving a year or two to this. And, the society could also use your help. Speaking of asking for money, it's the end of the year, and we could really use your support to promote education and actually formation, evangelization, and Catholic social teaching. So if you go to chesterton.org/donate, you can donate there, or you can become a Knight of the Apostolate, and that is you're aware of the Knights of the Apostolate?
I am a knight.
You are a knight. Okay,
I'm
good.
Sir.
So here we go. We have a knight right here in our midst.
Sir Richard.
Sir Richard. Yeah. That's amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
And by the way, our own also under the apostolate, we have the Society of St. John Bosco.
Okay.
Which is he's both our hero and our patron.
I know. So. Don Bosco is amazing. It's just awesome. Amazing too many times. So he's awesome. Yeah. He one of the things I like that he said was if you want, it was something along the lines of, if you want your kids to like you, like what they like. And that's, that doesn't mean like the things that are bad, that, the vices that they like maybe, but just like the things that are entertaining that they like, be able to relate to them.
Right.
And so that's, I like St. John Bosco a lot.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much for being here with us, Richard.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And thank you all for listening. Until next time, help us to make uncommon sense more common.